are live. We are back from hiatus after hitting our 100th episode. We took a little break, but we're back. We're really excited to be here with Megan Driscoll. Megan Driscoll is the host of AI for Growth, Lessons from Leaders. I am super excited about her podcast. I actually was a guest on her podcast, and it just released today, so it's like this perfect synergy.
So it looks like you're doing the podcast, but it actually isn't really true.
Yeah,
it looks all day long for Jeff.
It looks very cool. It looks like very coordinated or whatever. But Megan is a business consultant helping small businesses implement AI. I have gone through her sort of discovery process, and it's amazing and awesome, and I really definitely recommend it to anyone. But at any rate, we thought it would be fun to have Megan on to talk about the idea that AI is throwing the business world off balance. And so I'd love to hear from, let's hear from everyone what each of you think about that idea, but maybe Megan, you can kick us off.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I think one of the reasons why I got into the business that I'm in and actually launched the podcast, if I think about it, was I was actually pretty concerned about how AI would affect female leaders, to be honest. There are very few female leaders, comparatively, and even less so in the CEO suite. And so how were female owners going to approach the adoption of AI? And it's like, there can't be another thing that sets us back, right? Like we can't have one more thing. So, and what I know about women in general, or sort of traditionally, the data would tell you that women are slower to adopt technology, but we actually adopt it very well. So we use it, once we adopt it, we really use it, and we can and run with it, but we're slow to adopt. And so we really can't be slow to adopt when it comes to AI. We'll be behind the 8 ball if we do. So that was that's something that is concerning to me. It's the impetus for the work that I do, for sure, and why I do it. Not that I just work with women, because I obviously do not, but but I have a soft space in my heart as a female leader, and that's something that concerns me.
It's interesting you bring that up, because like the one of the things that troubles me about AI that I haven't quite wrapped my head around is this concept that like, are we locking in like everything we know today is like the basis for this tool that everybody's going to use to sort of build on, et cetera. And I think one of the things that troubles me is like, are we locking in biases and stupid things that we've, kind of walked into due to, history and whatever. And one of those things, of course, is lack of diversity of voices in the AI. So I think that's I think there's a concern about adoption and moving forward, but I also think, unfortunately, there's this concern about the fact that AI is entirely looking backwards, at least the way that it's generated in terms of how it comes up with its language and frequency and whatever. And we see this in like biases in terms of racial biases and whatever, and some very high profile things. But I suspect that it's a big problem from a gender and leadership perspective. I don't know. Anybody else want to jump in?
I can jump in. So representing healthcare here, I want to bring up two subjects. One is the incredible amount of pressure and expectations the world is awaiting from AI, right? AI is going to revolutionize and change the business model, and we're going to get this incredible outcomes, and all of that hopefully pans out, but it is easier said than done with healthcare regulatory environment, data integrations, and everything we have to live through. So that's one, right? Expectations versus reality. The second one is what you brought up, Megan, is how it impacts women's careers and development. And in reality, a lot of women work in things like operations, right? And content development and executional roles that are going to be impacted by AI. So while we think that AI will propel women into greater leaderships and industries, it may or may not pan out, because a lot of women's roles currently will be impacted by AI and this as in substituted. So we don't have one.
It's a really interesting point that you all are bringing up because I hadn't really thought. I mean, I always heard about the idea of, you know, what Eric, you were talking about, like the bias within the AI, but there's clearly I mean, I always make this comment, like, when in human history has a new technology ever led to fewer jobs? But the reality is the speed at which AI is happening is eventually there will be jobs that come out of AI, but there will be huge disruption. And to your point, Megan, I my my I'd like to think that we've thought through what this disruption is going to look like, but we all know nobody's thought at all about this disruption. And I had never thought about this angle that you brought up, which is, you know, which jobs are going to be most impacted first? Who's going to get displaced? I'm seeing, you know, a lot of marketers getting displaced. I'm seeing, you know, because I do some work with job seekers, and I see a lot of marketers getting displaced. I've seen a lot of, you know, people in, like, you know, user UX design, those kinds of things. You know, you're seeing HR folks getting displaced, whatever. Like, who gets displaced first could have an impact on the sort of gender mix, especially if lower, you know, sort of more, you know, kind of lower at the lower levels, where you actually have a little more balance and people trying to move up where into those higher levels where you don't have that balance. So it's a really interesting point that I had not considered.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, like, you know, as it relates to the job displacement piece, you know, I do think that women are in very specific roles, like in marketing is one of them. I think it's dominated by women, HR dominated by women. Yes. But I also think there are huge disruptions happening if you think about just like sales, right? And business development. I mean, that's the sort of what I focus on, trying to help companies implement AI that is revenue based, or essentially almost taking over their business development on behalf of their team, meaning like those people don't need to be there anymore. And so that is a male dominated industry that could be incredibly disrupted, where the entire sales process is handled, you know, by AI bots, with very little oversight, maybe just from like a management perspective. So I do think that there are pockets in both sides that could affect sort of the gender balance. But I do think though that you're right. We have not really considered all the disruptions. I mean, we've talked about it. I've heard people talk about, oh, it's going to replace blah, blah, blah. But I don't think we've really thought through like what that's actually going to look like. But did anybody hear, who is it, the founder of Claude? I can't remember, talking about he had modeled out the hiring and the birth rate globally. I don't know. Did anyone hear this? So he had modeled out the birth rates, because our birth rates are declining globally.
Yeah.
We're having kind of like a massive extinction of humans. And so they think that there's this, well, the way he mapped it out is that there's this dive, right? So we're going to have this like crunch where there's going to be too many jobs, not enough people. And that's going to be like maybe 10 years from now and last maybe 10 years. Mm-hmm. But that the birth rate decline is going to actually match where AI picks up the ball and runs with it. In which case we will kind of feel some short amount of crunch pain, but then things will even out because there just isn't going to be enough people on the planet to deliver the products that we actually need. So I thought that was kind of an optimistic thing to think about, just generally, that we're not all going to just.
I was going to say, like, oh, I want what he's smoking. If that...
Yeah, exactly. And singularity will be upon us.
So one of the things that you bring up birth rate, and this is a really, I'm going to get slightly political, and we can veer off of it if we don't want to go there, but like, there was this thing on Fox News that I saw a clip of. I didn't watch Fox News, but I saw this clip of, and this guy was lamenting the birth rate, saying the birth rate's dropping, and it's mostly because we keep discouraging 15 to 19-year-olds from having babies. And I was like, what the heck?
That is not.
As a parent of 15-year-olds, you were like, yeah.
I mean, it's sort of on brand for the
Sounds
Fox
right.
News folks, but it's actually interesting because maybe that birth rate issue is actually, I've never like connected those dots together, but maybe it's that as more people get educated and have opportunities and whatever, their early life birth rates end up dropping because of that. And that kind of means that the whole, as you said, the whole population might drop, which might not be a bad thing. But I like I like his concept that like maybe it'll balance out. I worry more about I feel like all these people who are like at the top end and already have $1 trillion or whatever. Well, Elon almost has $1 trillion or whatever. They're always like, oh yeah, we'll figure it out and there'll be universal high income. And it's like, to Jeff's comment, like when in history have the ultra rich actually taken care of everybody else? I just don't necessarily believe it.
Well, they'll take care of their own, I guess. Maybe that does happen.
Right. It'll be Elon and his 20 million kids.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Worldwide domination by Elon sperm.
Right. Well, it's interesting. There's this interesting point here of like, as like there's a major mindset shift. If you even believe, what if Elon believes what Elon said about universal high incomes and whatever it is, it's like, well, then you'd have to believe that there's going to be a mindset shift in the world of, hey, we're okay, because historically it's always been, people shouldn't get money unless they do the work, right? And so the question becomes, well, if you're basically saying, hey, there's just not as much work to do because we've got, AI, doing the knowledge work, we've got robotics doing a lot of the, the manual work and whatever, and we've just become sort of wealthier as a world, but then we'd have to actually change our view of what is work and what do we expect people to do, because humans, on the one hand, I mean, like, we absolutely like leisure time, but we don't like not feeling that we have a purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's self-worth and what's the sense of purpose?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it leads to, at least the way I think about it too. I mean, so universal basic income has been an idea that the left has been talking about forever, right? And it shows up in other parts of the world in sort of variety of different places. Like in Switzerland, as an example, the baristas make $95,000 a year. Wow. In Costa Rica, actually, like there's not a very big difference between what a doctor makes and, a high-end server at the Four Seasons, as an example. And so I think there are lots of places in the world where we have a more balanced income, which the United States is on a trajectory of the opposite. We have the haves and the have-nots, and it's the largest. I think this right now is the time we have the largest discrepancy between the have and the have-nots that we've ever had, and it's actually considered historically the beginning of the demise of whatever republic or whatever sort of setup you have governmentally. Absolutely. Beginning of the end, So it could be just a way of self-preservation, to be honest, that we have to kind of recalibrate. Otherwise, we kind of lose everything that we have. Because, but I think it would really benefit, obviously, Black and brown people for sure. I mean, when we look at income dissemination, I mean, women, people of color are, at the bottom. So a universal basic income would help people that I think right now, currently politically, people don't care about. I would love that. That would be amazing to see us rise and, have everybody rise essentially. But I think it's not because we can all rise and the top doesn't have to come down. They don't have to come down to where we are, but if we rise everybody up, I think that would be amazing.
But it's not just Black and brown people. It is really a question. That is a problem in and of itself and goes beyond the discrepancy. But there is a true discrepancy between haves and have-nots in, amongst white people. Just there are people who have no opportunities and who are worried about this is why they can leverage coal as an issue in West Virginia or whatever. Like people don't have, I don't know, I just saw some post online about a town that's basically just lost its only industry, and they were full 100% MAGA voting pro-Trump town, and they voted for Trump to come and save their industry, and now they have nothing, right? So 1/3 of the folks in that town apparently worked for whatever this company was, but the other 2/3 were working as services for the people whose money came from those industries. So now we're in this mess. And I think, I mean, to your point about the U.S. being kind of going the wrong direction, I think we've been in the healthcare is a privilege mode. I think we're moving towards like food and housing as a privilege kind of mode in the United States. And Europe, I mean, I think to some degree, capitalism could kind of limp along and be in sort of in a way that was at least roughly aligned with the people's, being needing to eat and live and whatever. I just don't, with AI and the job crunch and all this, I'm not sure you can vilify socialism in the way that we vilified socialism in this country for years and actually have people survive.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and two, this is by far one of the worst job markets for students entering the workforce for the first time. I mean, a number of people who, my original core business, I owned and operated one of the largest recruiting firms in Boston. I founded it when I was 25. I sold it to private equity, and then I stepped down as the CEO. So I saw just hiring in a big way, but really focused in the biopharmaceutical industry. But career development has been my sort of lifetime interest. And, I really don't think it's been this bad. I mean, I've been through 2 recessions, and then COVID too. This is sort of unprecedented, the number of young people who are looking for a job and cannot find one. And I think, I don't know whether that's being disrupted by AI, probably some of it. I think it's just the general economy in general. The stock market has taken a hit, the sort of uncertainty, the cost of goods are, all the things. But it is a little bit scary, I think, for people, especially young people. And they're, moving back home. And now there's a stress on the parents who are taking on the responsibility of bringing them back into the home and caring for them and paying for them. So I just wonder how this is going to play out,
Yeah.
And of course, we can say, yes, AI is substituting the entry-level jobs, the operations jobs, right? The paralegal jobs that often are done with kids out of school analysts. That's another one. And yes, they're moving back home. There are no jobs. But another angle here is traditionally, that was the opportunity for the first job, the training, the rise, the first promotion, and joining the workforce. If now these kids cannot join the workforce, how are we training the next generation? How are we solving for that one?
Well, and I think it goes back to a point that we were talking about earlier, which is I think I would feel better. I realize y'all going to laugh at me again, but I would feel better if we knew that somebody is sort of thinking about this at a societal level as opposed to just let's just see what happens. And I think you mentioned one, right, in terms of the education. Our people, the part of the problem is that the kids are coming out of school and they can't find jobs. And some of that, Megan, to your point, is just the uncertainty of the economy. And companies are essentially, they're using AI as an excuse. But reality is, in times of uncertainty, we get rid of headcount because it is one lever we know we can pull, right? But the other thing is that kids aren't being educated for the new economy that they're going to be going into. And it's interesting because I taught last year. I was teaching marketing at UMass Boston, and I remember notably I taught for 2 semesters, fall semester, spring semester of last year. And in the fall semester, all of the conversation about AI was, it's cheating. We need to find ways of stopping students from using it, whatever it is. And all of a sudden you had this sort of in the spring semester, you suddenly had this kind of new narrative, wow, we really need to train our students to use these tools. Because as you were talking, what I was thinking was it is true that AI can do entry-level work, but what that means is that your ability to use AI to do that entry-level work is the new entry-level work, right? And if you don't train people to do it, because all the students are kind of AI is bad. It's I remember when we were kids and it was alcohol is bad. You can't. It's we've done this to we've done this to kids with AI now. It's don't.
So I think it's even we're not teaching them. We're even teaching them maybe the wrong things. And I think about this with my kids are not quite college age yet. I mean, my daughter's finishing middle school. My son's about to finish his junior year in high school. So they're going to be going into college soon, figuring out what they want to do. Like it used to be, you go into coding and you could have a job, right? You become a coder. Well, now, I mean, I don't know if there's going to be coding jobs. I mean, I literally can just talk at my computer and had it write a phone app to teach me Chinese. And it's helping. I mean, like I didn't write a single line of code, even though that's what I have done for my whole career. And so it's like, I don't even know what to tell my kids is a good field to study. One of them expressed an interest in like in medicine, and they were talking about it wasn't radiology, but let's say radiology because it's an easy example. Like, but I'm like, okay, but are you sure that radiology is going to be that fun of a field when it's just like, you know, you're just feeding the images into the AI or whatever, and it's like, I'm not sure that. I'm not sure which parts of medicine are going to be affected by this. I suspect they'll be more so than we think today. I think some of the ways we think AI, I think there was a quote or something that was attributed to Bill Gates or something. Sorry, Brian, this was before Bill Gates was in the Epstein files or whatever. But like that, but the idea that we're overestimating AI in the short term and underestimating it in the long term was the gist of the gist of his comment. And I think that that's true probably of medicine. We're underestimating how it's going to affect medicine. We're probably overestimating how it's going to affect some of the things that we think are going to, I mean, we already seen this, right? I think a year ago, nobody was going to have to do anything at all. And agentic AI was going to do, you know, was going to tie your shoes for you and wipe your nose or whatever. But clearly that's not happening. So actually, I want to get, that reminds me of a question I just wrote down now. There is a lot of good that we can do in the world. There's a lot of good that AI can help us do. We've been promised all kinds of amazing things with AI, and we don't seem to ever land on those. Like, why is it that we don't land on the amazing energy, you know, clean energy benefits that AI is enabling or whatever? They seem to take forever. I'm waiting for, you know, I'm still waiting for my self-driving car. It's going to be a while before I definitely not picking up one of Elon's cars, but you know, but that was supposed to be 5 years ago. It was imminent, like next week, and now it's still, I mean, it's out there, Waze or whatever it is, but we're not seeing some of the, seems like the benefits aren't moving fast enough. The job stuff is you know, the job stuff is maybe peeling away jobs without actually producing these amazing, significant improvements. We're just kind of doing the same thing with fewer people. I don't know. Anybody want to pick up?
Well, I think that's you know, as you were talking about it, it just, you know, we've compounded the issue like that exists that you've described by our pulling of funding for all of these things too. If you think about all the money that's been pulled, let's just think about research, you know, so, you know, they're saying we could have 100 years worth of research in the next 10 years, right? Because of AI. Well, we would actually need people to do that. And we have defunded essentially the NIH, and you know, hundreds of millions of dollars have been pulled out of research. So I think like we've really handicapped ourselves in some cases for us to be on the forefront of how we can utilize AI in a lot of these areas, such as clean energy. Again, we've handicapped clean energy, we've handicapped healthcare. So, you know, I don't know that the US will become a leader in any of those places because of, you know, the current administration's decision to pull back on the funding of those things, because it's almost like we pulled back the funding even before, like right as we were getting going to think like, oh, AI could change the world. And all of a sudden now you've ripped all these people out of their positions and shut down all these programs. And now who's doing it? The people that are left are, you know, keeping their head above water to manage programs that have been in place for 15 years, right? Like, so I think we've just we just kind of like blew everything up at a time that was just like so poor. The timing of that could not have been worse. And I do wonder if like Europe or, Asia will lead in the space because of it. We'll see.
We're actually even having like a backlash, I think, from the billionaire, the billionaire class or whatever. I literally saw a clip of what's his name, Steve Forbes or whatever Forbes' first name is, and he was like, look how stupid it has been that Europe put all this money into clean energy. It is a disaster, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is like the death throes of even this war in Iran right now is like the death throes of this petroleum-based economy. And we are doubling down in the United States, to your point. It's like we're moving away from doing better and in order to make sure that we maximize the profits of the old guard. It's really unfortunate, and thankfully we have. I mean, we can look to China, who is like, we can't be that stupid. I mean, I'm sure they have their problems, their human rights problems, or whatever. We do too now.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were talking, Eric, I was thinking it's like a societal level Blockbuster video problem, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to figure out how to keep the bricks and mortar when streaming is happening.
Right.
And I think so. I keep coming back to that same point of how do you, in this moment where so much change is happening so rapidly, and there is not there's not clarity on who's actually looking at the implications. And actually, Megan, maybe we bring this back to some of the work you do with businesses. How do you sort of make sure that your business or whatever is going to come out victorious and survive as these huge disruptions happen? So
yeah, well, I do think it's I think there's a little bit of back to the basics. So even if we think about SEO, like SEO is kind of dead, right? The entire way that AI is finding and bringing that particular company to the top is a completely different algorithm than what SEO is doing, right? So if we think about just like they are now based on Better Business reviews, Trustpilot, Yelp reviews, like these things that were not, or have come out of favor are now back in favor again, because that's what AI is searching. So you think about just kind of going back to the basics. And what I find is one of the things I've really noticed, which has been a little bit surprising to me actually with my small and medium-sized businesses, is how few companies have a solid plan for how they're going to manage their clients and their ongoing, like forget AI, take AI completely out of it, right? How are you mining and interacting with your potential clients on a regular basis, 24/7, set and forget? Automation for reach out and connection has been there. That's not like a new technology. That's not, AI has taken it to the next level, right? Completely, in terms of our ability to reach anybody in the United States. Like I can pull a list as an example. If you wanted to reach out to cotton farmers in the United States, in 1 hour, I could get you a list of, 7,000 cotton farmers, probably the entire number of people who do cotton farming in the United States. So there's the ability to reach, right, is really there. But what I've been so surprised about is like what you think about is like just sort of basic things that a company needs to have in order to be successful. And it's just like a client management system. And so many of them don't have that. So it's like, let's go back to the basics and make sure like you at your core have some things that are in place. You have good reviews, you have client testimonials, you've got a system by which you can reach out to your potential clients on a regular basis. You're trying to communicate with them on a regular basis. Like, what does that look like before we get into like how you can have AI save you time on your proposals, right? If you don't have that base, like it doesn't really even matter. You're just chasing your tail. You're going to lose clients all over the place. So it's interesting because although I'm implementing AI, especially as it relates to like, let's go find your niche. Who is the people that you want to reach? And let's create a campaign and make sure we get to them. And let's use AI to do that. So much of the consulting I do is based on like, but how are you functioning in terms of your business development? Like, what does that actually look like? And so a lot of that is just kind of going back to the basics. And I think that that's kind of one of the most important things to think about is is how do you like if you go back to like business school, right? Like you got to have a product, but if you don't have sales, you can have the best goddamn product and it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to buy it if nobody knows about it. So like, no matter what, you have to figure out a way to get clients, potential clients, to know about your business. How do you do that? And so in the age of AI, I think it's just sort of a different approach. We can be far more aggressive if we want to be, but no matter what, we have to have this base for how do we nurture those leads, if you will. And that's the piece that I've been really surprised about. Many, many companies don't have in place.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, though, so there's everybody loves saying the term AI slop these days. It's just like it comes out of them, and I was listening to Bloomberg, and they're talking about AI slop in business or whatever. But it's interesting. You're talking about SEO, and SEO was like the human version of slop, right? Like, thank God we're not doing some of these stupid SEO tricks. The one that really just as an anecdotal one that just really ticks me off is every time I go to read a recipe, it was one of our guests who like clued me into this, like, and you're like, I just want the list of ingredients. Like, I want my whatever Betty Crocker cookbook style, like first, like give me the list of ingredients and then how do I combine them? Instead, I get this whole story about the grandfather who like brought this over from blah, blah, blah. And then 45 paragraphs down, there's this thing, right? So maybe there's some benefits to moving away from the SEO, and maybe we're vilifying the AI slop a little bit more than we should. In other words, it's easy to pretend like the old system was great, but it was only working. It wasn't necessarily great. So there are actually maybe some benefits that are that come out of this in terms of now you actually have to have real content for AI to comprehend and be able to, spit back to people in there in ChatGPT or whatever it is, not just keywords that, and sort of clickbait kind of, stuff. And that could actually be a positive for companies, but it is going to take a lot of probably painful in many cases adjustment.
It does. It's overwhelming too. It's overwhelming for businesses to think about all the things that they now need to be doing maybe differently. But I would say that process of kind of going back to the basics and taking a look at customer acquisition, just like a simple process. Tell me about your customer acquisition, as like the primary driver for any business is how do you attain your customers? And so like going into that and really like getting back to that simple piece of how are we doing it, I think can reveal a lot about how a business will be able to not only implement AI where necessary, but just like be able to be robust for the future.
Right.
Like if you've got a solid client acquisition platform in place, doesn't matter what kind of recessionary period we're in or what kind of structure we're in. If that's solid, like nothing else really matters, right? Like it needs to be tweaked. But if you have a system, you're doing better than like literally probably 75% of the small businesses on the planet right now, because it is clear to me that is something that people are not doing. So
most people are doing friends and family until it stops working. And when you're in a recession, that's going to be when it stops working. So when you need it, it's not there, and that's a huge problem. So
Well, this has been a really awesome conversation and has flown by as usual. So, but I think we've really hit the topic. AI is throwing the business world off balance, or maybe the whole world off balance. Megan, we always like to let our guests go first as we do our wrap up. So what's one thing that you want the audience to take away from today's discussion?
Well, I hope people aren't just completely dismayed by any of the changes that are happening and feeling like the world is completely screwed. Because I do think that there's a lot of opportunity. And I do think that this is, as we talked about I think Eric, you mentioned this where AI is building off of what's happened, right? Its future is what's happened based on what's happened. And could we lose innovation in the process? That's what I kind of think about. But I think in times of real disruption is, when people look back on their lives and they think about big shifts in their lives when major things had happened, they usually associate that with sort of a big disruption. So big movement forward was because of like a course correction, a necessary course correction.
Right.
And so I think that this is going to be one of those moments in time where there'll be like really lots of winners and maybe some losers, but I do think for many, many people, this is an opportunity, a time to do something really different, think outside the box and change directions. And so I think it could be really exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Megan. It's been great to hear your perspectives. Before I give my one thing, what is the best place for people to reach out to you?
So my website's easy, megandriscoll.com. MEGAN, don't spell it the hard way, Driscoll, DRISCOLL, or LinkedIn, or anywhere else. I'm on Instagram, all those things, but megandriscoll.com is the best place.
Awesome. Well, I guess I will just because I kept bringing this point up because it kept striking me as everybody was talking is, I think one of the things that we're going to have to grapple with, as a society, is we haven't thought through all of the implications, whether it's on the job force, it's on businesses, it's on, the topic you started us off with on like, biases and how, women business owners or minority business owners, et cetera. And so I think how do we start having more of that conversation of what are the implications that people haven't thought through? I think it's going to be an interesting issue to watch as we into this AI era. Elena, I'll pass it over to you.
Sure, I would continue on the subject, and I think we are very much an economically driven market. So most likely we're going to look at it and say, well, we'll let the market figure it out, right? We'll figure it out. And there is the point that you were bringing, Megan, about go back to the fundamentals. How are you running your business? How are you managing your customer? How are you finding your customer? How are you innovating? What's it impacting? Run your little domain well, and then see how the market falls out becomes very important. So that's my takeaway.
So I'm gonna veer off on a bit of a left turn. It's a question we didn't quite get to, which is this. The thought I was having earlier was, what is real? It becomes really weird right now. I mean, like particularly in politics and entertainment or whatever, we don't know what's real and what's not real. And I just kind of like, as we're talking about the business implications, I think politics and entertainment are kind of like the leading edge of like this, sort of people messing with reality. What happens to businesses when, the spoofing of people, the spoofing, like what happens to crisis control when, and crisis handling when like it's a, it's something that you didn't write, or somebody starts like making up Yelp reviews, and I don't know. I just think there's a lot of weird questions that we probably haven't thought a lot about that are going to start becoming really important in the application of AI to business in the near term. And not all of them bad, but some of them will be probably causing a lot of stress. Anyway, I usually wrap things up here, but since I don't have any control right now for the episode, I'm going to kick that back over to Jeff.
Well, anyway, Megan, it's been a pleasure. This was a great conversation, and it was so much fun to chat with you on your podcast, and it's been great to have you on this one. I think a really cool conversation. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Thank you.